What is going on, guys? It's Harain, and today I am back with the third portion of what we have been doing in the series. Okay, so our first portion is Postman with OpenAI, where we were able to use Postman and go ahead and hit the OpenAI's API. So everyone should have been able to get their key and go ahead and be able to hit the OpenAI's API and hit some of the endpoints that they have there. In our second course, we actually moved over to this project that you're seeing on my screen, which is a philanthropy project. And the philanthropy project really and truly is not anything other than I'm giving to you guys. And this was something from a passion project that me and the community on Clubhouse talked about and said, listen, we would like to do something for philanthropy and push that going forward. So we are going to be using a lot of the stuff that we do here, move it into a framework, and we're going to be going. So with that said, what I wanted to do is in our live class, we had gone over the project, and we wrote all of this code for the most part in our last project, but we did some updates. So in this class, we want to talk about the updates. That way you can understand exactly what is going on, understanding the file structure, understanding what we're going to be doing, and that way you can pick up from where we left off and actually have a working code. The great thing with this class is that in our live class, there was a little bit of hiccup because we had the submit form refreshing the page and we weren't able to get the results. And in the live class, I just couldn't get my attention focused on the code itself and focus on the classroom. But with the code, I did promise that I would fix that and you guys would have the fix here. And right now the fix is actually right here on the screen, and it was such a simple fix for us to get it going. But what I wanted to do today is to make sure that we talk about all of the files that we have, so you have a good understanding, because after today's class we will have one more video related to this whole series of what we're doing, which is basically to style the page so you'll have a beautiful web page. All right, so beautiful web page. So what you will need for today is, again, your project inside of your IDE, which is your integrated development environment. All right, and the first thing we're going to be talking about today is our index.html. So on my left hand side of my screen, I have my index.html file, and I'm going to be opening up that file right now. Okay, so in my index.html file, we're going to talk about what this code looks like, right? So again, I've been showing you guys how to write HTML code, but now I'm going to explain the code to you. Okay, I'm going to explain the code to you. So we have our doc type HTML. Okay, doc type HTML. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some code here to give you guys a breakdown of what's going on. So what we're going to do is first we're going to create a comment. So to create a comment in HTML, you're going to do bracket exclamation dash dash. Okay, and you see everything on my screen went gray, and the reason being is because it commented out everything on my screen. Okay, so I'm going to say this is our test, not our test, let's change it from our test, our first index page for a website. Okay, now what I want to do is let me fix this right here. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and close the comment so that the browser has access back to the HTML. So to do that, I'm going to do dash dash, and then I'm going to do angle bracket to the next side. Okay, so you have angle brackets left, angle brackets right. Okay, so we have that. Okay, now as you may see, we have HTML, right? Because we're writing HTML code. So the entire website is in HTML. So when I minimize it, you see that the entire site is in HTML, and this HTML element embodies everything that's on this page. Okay, now I'm going to enable that. The website is broken up into two parts. Okay, there's two parts. You have a header section, all right, and you have a body section. In the header section, this is where we add the title for the page. Okay, the title for the page. So for example, if you go to google.com, right, if you go to google.com, And let me go to Google here and bring that on the screen so you can see what I'm saying. If you go to google.com, okay, when you go to google.com, let me make this fit. So when you go to google.com, this right here is pretty much what the title is, right? So if I inspect this page right here, okay, and I go into the head, you will see that this says Google, right? So Google, right? If I click on this and I change it to my Google, right, and hit enter, you'll see that it changed up here, my Google, okay, my Google. So this is what we're doing. So the header title relates to what you see here in the tab bar, okay, what you see in the tab bar. Also, you could put like the logo in there as well, and you can do many other things, okay, many other things. So these are all of the things that Google have in their header, okay, in their header. They have, from links to metadata to scripts, so that's what Google have in their data. So you can always go through any website by just right clicking and inspecting that website and seeing what they have in their elements. All right, what they have in their elements. All right. So now that we know that we have our header element, in our header element, I created this title called GPT clone because we're creating something similar to GPT, and it is a clone. Okay, it is a clone. All right. Now we're gonna have a link, which is it's gonna be a style sheet, and the type is text CSS, and href is where is this style sheet at. So when you do a link, we need to add this href, and this href is css style.css. So css is a folder, which is this folder here, and then style.css is the file, which is this file right here. Okay. Now again, we have another link here, and this one is to a cdn.jsdeliver.net npm bootstrap. This is where we're actually bringing in a bootstrap website. Okay, so that's a bootstrap website that we're bringing in because bootstrap is a it's a powerful feature pack front-end toolkit that we can use to help us style. So if you click on the documents here, you'll see that if you go down, they have layouts, they have grids, they have content, they have forms, they have components, right? So in our next class, we'll be using Bootstrap to make our page really, really pretty. But right now, the only thing that we wanted from Bootstrap is one of the components that it had, okay? So in the components, what we wanted to have is this nav bar, which we grabbed in our last class, and we grabbed this nav bar and we pasted this into our code, okay? So we're gonna be using Bootstrap to style our page in our next class, all right? So this link is to pull that Bootstrap code in, okay? The next thing we have here is our script, and this is a script to our JavaScript file. All right, this is our script to our JavaScript file. So this is JS again, is our JS folder here, and base.js is actually the name of the file that we have here. Okay, so now we have a access to that. So in the link, we use href to bring the location, to bring the location of the file in, but in script we use the word source, or the letters src, to tell it that the source is at this location. So href says it's at that location when we're doing links, but in scripts we actually use the word source to link it to where we are trying to go, right? So because this is a header, we have an opening tag and we have a closing tag. Okay, so this element in total, have everything for the head, which tells the browser, what it is that you would like to do. So we could add metadata, we could add descriptions, we could add keywords, we could add different things in here to help with the SEO. Now we go down to the body. In the body, we have the nav, and the nav is what we just copied again from that Get Bootstrap website that we talked about. And we're not going to go over that because we'll talk about that in our next class. Now, this is a code that I typed out in the last class, which is the div, and we gave it a class of container, right? Because this is a container. It has a form in there. This is the fix for the code from last class, all right? So we're going to put on submit equals return false. And what that means is that on the submit button, which is down here, right, when we click this button, we do not want the page to refresh, right? Because we're sending a message, we're sending a call to a function to do something, and we do not want the page to refresh because we want to see the results. So in my last class, we did not have this in our code. So for anyone that is watching this that was in my last class, can go ahead and add on submit equals return false, and your code should work right now. You should be able to see the response from the OpenAI server, right? Then we have a div element, and in that div element, we have a label. And in that label, we have for response text area, which is, this is for our text area down there. And this text area has the same ID, response text area, which we talked about in our last class. And we give it a name of response. Then we have another div down here, which is for the input field for you to enter your prompt. And then we also have the actual input field. So we have the label, we have the for the input field, we have the ID for the input field to match the label to the input field, and we close that out as well. As you may see on input fields, there is no ending closing tag like we have here, right? So we have no closing tag like we have here. There's no closing tags like we have form. There's no closing tag like div, right? So not all tags require a closing tag, okay? And normally it's the ones that you don't write things in between. Normally you write the information inside of the tag itself. So for example, this is a placeholder and we type here. So this actually goes inside of it, right? We actually do the typing on the browser itself. So because of that, we don't necessarily need a tag, a closing tag on this, okay? So if I just do input right here, right? It will just grayed out because it's going to say, hey, listen, we don't really need it. So it's just going to grayed out, okay? Now, as we see, we have a button and the type is submit. And when we submit, we say on click, we're going to send a message. We're going to send a message, okay? And we tell the website that this should just submit to the user, okay? And then we have the script, and this script again is just a bootstrap script, which we talked about earlier. And that is it for the index.html page, okay? That's it for the index.html page. Now, if I hit play here, you will see what we have now is our GPT clone, which is basically a response box, which we talked about, and the word response, which is a label. And then this was the text area. Again, this was a label for the input box, and this was the text area where we say, and then the submit button that we spoke about, right? So let's inspect this real quick. And let's go to console because we want to see what this is. So if I do hello here and submit, right, you'll see that, you know, we have an error here, which is exactly what we want. And the error is because there's a 401, which means that I do not have any type of permission at this point in time to access this. So to see why we don't have access, we're going to go over to our base.js. And as you may see, the first thing it says is set up your API parameters const, which is our variable, our constant variable, API key, and it says add your API key here. So I don't have my API key. So what we'll do is just go over the code really quickly, and then I will go ahead and add the API key. Okay, well, I will add the API key. So first we have one function here, and the function is fetch. Okay, the function is send message to fetch, and we're going to fetch from https API openai.com version 1 chat completion. So we're actually hitting this endpoint right here, okay, on their version 1 of their API. So this is the endpoint that we're hitting on version 1 of their API. This fetch method, right, this fetch function right here takes in two parameters, right? So it takes in, this is the first one that it takes in, and then this init, right? So it takes in an input and takes in an init, okay? So in this init is actually where we're going to be talking, right? This init from this bracket to this bracket is where we're going to be talking to the OpenAI server. So in the OpenAI server, we need to send an HTML call to it, right? So we're going to send a call to it, and that call we have to use our body. We talked about that in our Postman class, and in the body we needed to add the model and the message that we are sending. And the message directives for OpenAI has to have an object in there, and in that object it has to have the role, and it has to have the content that we're sending. So in this case, we're going to be taking on the user role, and the content that we're going to be sending is a document.getElementID, right? We get an element by ID, so the ID is going to be the input field, and we're going to get the value. So where is the input field? If we go back into our index.html and we go down to our input field right here, you'll see that the ID for this is input field. So this on line 60 right here, the input field has an ID, and in the JavaScript, we're telling the JavaScript that, hey, let's get that element's ID, which is the input field, and get the value from that. So once we did that, then we have the temperature and the max tokens, and you can read about that on the OpenAI website. I talked about that, right? The method is post. We have talked about that many times, that we are posting. You can also get, okay? For example, you can get all their models, okay? You would need to hit a different endpoint to get all their models, but you can use the word get here and hit the endpoint that takes in the get method, all right? The header is content type application JSON, which we covered already in our previous videos. And then authorization is bearer API token. So what we did here, we put this in string bearer space, and then we close it with the double quotes. Then we use a plus, which is to concatenate the API key. So this will become one single string, right? But API key will pull in this constant up here, which is this variable up here. It will pull this, and whatever I put in here, it will put it here and concatenate it, right? So we'll combine both of them together. So we have one string for the authorization key, right? Once we get that sent to the server, then we're going to be looking for a response. And based on that response, we will do something. So in this case, we say, hey, let's get the response. We're going to log the response. So in the case earlier, you see I got a 401, and that was the response that we got. Now, if we got the response that is okay, then we're going to say response.json. So in the response, get the JSON. Then we're going to pass that JSON, and we're going to console log the JSON, which is going to console log the JSON object that came back from OpenAI. And then in that JSON object, we have choices. So we can console log the JSON choices, and we want choice 0 from the array. We want the message from that array, and we want the content, which is our response that we're looking for the message that we send. Then we're going to say get element by ID response text area. So we're going to get the response text area, which is here, which is where we want to print our results, right? And we're going to say get the inner HTML of that, and we're going to tell it that it's equal to the JSON choices, the message content, okay? So let me do this now. Let me go ahead and get my API key, and so we can test to make sure that this works, so we can get rid of the 401 error. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to copy my API key, which I have here, which I told everyone to go ahead and save their API key somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my API key, okay? And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to delete where it says add your key here. Delete that. I'm going to paste my API key right there. All right, I'm going to paste my API key. Make sure that we have that paste, okay? So let me make sure that we have a complete string. Now, all I need to do here is go ahead and hit play. Okay, go ahead and play. So process finished with exit code 0, which means that everything should be good. And all I need to do is now refresh this page. Okay, refresh this page. And now I could say, what are the best cars that were ever built? Right, so this is a question. And now I'm going to hit the submit button. We don't want the page to refresh that we were having in the class, and we want to watch the console to see if we're going to get a result, and we also watch the response to make sure that it did get the inner HTML and add the response to it. So let's go ahead and hit submit. Okay, so we hit submit, and that should be getting sent over to the server right now. All right, so let's see what's going on here, and look at that. We just got our response. See that? We got our response. If I click on all messages right here, you'll see we got information back from the server, right? So we got an ID for the chat. So this is ID for the chat that we just talked to. This is a model that we talked to. We got an object with a chat.completion. It gave us a usage of how much usage that we had, right? And it dig down into it. So you can keep going deep down into this to really figure out what is it that you're getting. But this is considered a JSON object. So now this is an array for the choices. So when we go in the array for the choices, we can extend the array for the choices. And the array has this object, which is 0. So 0 is the first object in any array. We talked about that. and then it says a finish reason is because it stopped, and then it also has an index of 0, and then we have a message. Okay, so this is a message. The message came by, which is a content, and then we get this entire content that we have printed here. And then also on top of the content, it also tells us that this role came back was the assistant. So the assistant, which is OpenAI, responded to us with this content. Okay, and so in this content we got the 10 best car: Ford Model T, Volkswagen, Porsche, Ferrari, and so on. All right, so that's all it is for this class. In our next class we will actually take this entire page right here and we will style it to look into something beautiful, and then even take some ideas and see how we can implement our ideas going forward, so everyone can take what we have learned here and move it into a different situation, right? And we can change this as well, right? What are the best types of shoe to run in, right? What's the best type of shoes to run in, right? So just to test another one right here. So once we send that, it takes a while to propagate on the server. So it's sending this information to the server. The server is going to take a time to figure out what's going on. Then it's going to send us a response back, which it did right here as an AI language model. I don't have personal preferences, but here are some of the best type of shoes to run in. Running shoes. These shoes are specifically designed for something. And then trail running shoes, minimalistic shoes, cross training shoes, barefoot shoes. Okay. So again, hopefully this gives you some insight. Hopefully after this class, you'll actually have your program running. Again, make sure that you're going through, looking at my code here, going through every line, making sure that you have your IDs in the right place, your input field IDs, your response text ID, your send message, which then relates to your send message function here, and then as well making sure that you're actually getting your element for your input field and you're sending back your response to your response text area. Okay, so go ahead and watch the videos over. I know we may have made some changes as well, so make sure that you have the same code that I have here as well. Okay, this is the important code, right? Make sure you have that code the exact way. So if you need to pause the video and see this code, go ahead and pause the video to see this code. And if you need to pause the video again to see this code, make sure you pause the video to see this code. And remember to put your API key, not my API key, but your API key. I will be deleting this API key, guys, so you don't have to worry about it, because your API key should be secret and you shouldn't be putting that in a video for other people to see it, because they could just copy it and use it. So I'll be deleting this API key, so you no longer will be able to hit my account. All right, but for the class purposes, this is what you need to do to get it working. In our next class, we'll be doing our style. Okay, we'll do our style. So when you're finished, your page is not going to look like mine's, because unless you add this style into yours right now. But we will talk about style in our next class. Hopefully y'all got something out of this video, and I will see you in the next video and the next live class on Clubhouse. Maximize AI is my room, so if you're trying to join us on Maximize AI, where I do the live classes, please find me on Clubhouse, find the Maximize AI house, and that's where you could find me when I do these live classes. And if you like to follow my videos, please go ahead and leave me some reviews, some 5 stars, some 3 stars, some 1 stars, whatever you feel I deserve for giving you what I'm giving you here, and if it's helpful to you. Okay, so I will see you in the next video.